Welcome to the Bettis Musgrove Show, the podcast where personal injury legal expertise meets real-world advice to empower and protect you. Join us as we delve into the critical aspects of personal injury cases, break down legal jargon into actionable insights, and share essential safety tips to help you navigate life's unexpected moments. And now, here are your hosts, Spencer Bettis and Ben Musgrove.
All right, good afternoon. Welcome to episode 6 of the Bettis Musgrove Show. As always, I'm Ben Musgrove. This is my law partner, Spencer Bettis. We own a law firm in Cumming, Georgia, where we specialize in personal injury law. We created this podcast a few months ago just to kind of tell everybody a little bit about who we are, what it is that we do for a living, as well as do a little deeper dive into what personal injury law actually is. And hopefully we can help some people sort of before, during, and after an injury-involved event. So, Spencer, without further ado, good afternoon. How are you?
It's a great day to be alive.
It is indeed.
Happy to be here with you shooting another episode.
Yeah. These days are starting to get pretty fun. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, me too. Really getting in love with this podcast thing, which is a bit of a shock. I didn't expect that. The last few weeks, what's been kind of cool is you've had a lot of people bring it up to you and notice you, me too. Getting a lot of love on social media, which is awesome. And we're always thinking about, finding new material. So anybody that has any would love to reach out to us and bring that up, something you want us to talk about. We'd love that. So past 2 or 3 weeks, we've been focusing on advocacy, what that looks like, what it means to, one, do our jobs well, be good attorneys and be good advocates, especially in the personal injury world. It's what we do. So we're going to carry that on just a little bit and focus on something that's very important. And our last episode, we talked about helping clients help us help them, and then address some of the big things that could have a potential effect on the outcome of the case. And so today, our episode is aptly titled "Tips and Tricks." So we wanted to take that a little bit further and just kind of explain stuff that could practically affect someone's case. And so what we're trying to do today is not necessarily tips and tricks, but more do's and don'ts after an accident. So,
on the advocacy topic, I think you and I could probably do 20 more episodes about being advocates. It's certainly paramount in everything that we do for our clients, and I think that probably is universal across the legal spectrum. I think whenever anyone is looking for an attorney or hiring an attorney, they need to find someone who's going to be an advocate for them. Not just in personal injury, but criminal law, family law, whatever the case may be. Yeah. You want that advocate who's going to work for you. But kind of what we talked about last week with some of the stories and the different things that we talked about in helping us help you is that advocacy, and we can only be as good as our clients are, essentially. And the advocacy really starts with the client right when whatever the injury event is that occurred happens, and it's really how that client or the potential client responds and how they act during and during and after an accident. Whether that's at the scene of the collision, whether it's at the scene of the slip and fall, whatever the case may be, whatever the client does, says, etc. When that event happens, it's important. We've talked about it before as well, but I think it bears repeating that in today's world, in 2024, there are eyes everywhere. So everybody's got a camera, a cell phone in their pocket. Traffic cameras everywhere, dash cams on a lot of cars. You got cars like Teslas that just have cameras in them that are constantly recording. There's literally cameras watching you in everything that you do, which directly affects how you should act and the things that you should say when something happens. Also in recent events in the world, every police officer now that responds to an accident has a body cam that's running. So they're capturing everything that you say. And there again, it's just that much more important than somebody be really careful in what it is that they say during an accident. Something as innocuous as "I'm fine," somebody just being general, just speaking, "Yeah, I'm fine." It sounds okay in the beginning, but it can actually kind of spell disaster for a claim if somebody's not careful. So, I've kind of put together a few tips on this topic. The first one being when you get into an accident or you have some sort of injury event, don't get into a discussion with the at-fault party about what may or may not have happened. Just keep it basic. Your adrenaline's going. A lot of times you're in shock because of the injuries. You certainly haven't had time to process everything. And I think most people have a natural tendency to sort of downplay a situation. So it's not a good idea to engage in a conversation about what may or may not have happened. I think you should give it a little while, kind of let it set in. Along those lines, never admit that you did anything wrong. You might not have. Looking at it right then on the spot, you may think you did something wrong, but it may not be the case. Give it a little bit of time. Let us investigate it. That way we can be advocates for whatever did happen. And if you're not the party who's the most at fault, if you're not more than 50% at fault, we can do something with it. But a lot of that has to do with the way someone responds in the beginning. I like to tell people, certainly if you're okay after an accident, it's okay to get out and check on people and make sure that they're doing okay, but don't get into conversations about what may or may not have happened. And along those lines, don't downplay how you're feeling. I think a lot of people, especially men, have a tendency just to sort of brush things off. They don't want to admit that they're in pain for whatever reason, and so they don't talk about it. But it's very important that you do talk about it with the people who are investigating the collision, your attorney certainly, but at the time, the police officers, for instance, in a car wreck, or the property owner or premises owner, wherever the incident may have happened. Tell them what you're experiencing. Don't just say, I'm okay. It's general conversation. People say it all the time, but don't just say, I'm okay. Be specific and say, my neck's hurting me, my knee's throbbing a little bit. Even if you don't think it's a big deal at the time, make sure they know about it. Along those lines too, don't use the words, I'm okay, because you very well may not be okay. I would say that even an I don't know is probably better than an I'm okay. At least when you say I don't know, you're leaving it open that there may be something there that you need to get checked out. And there may be injuries that you've experienced that aren't readily apparent. It may take a couple of days for the adrenaline to wear off before those pains really start to set in. And so if you said okay and then it turns out not to be okay, you've kind of boxed yourself in, and it makes our job a little bit more hard. And then I would say also on the injury front, when it comes to treating with your medical providers, you got to tell your medical providers the truth. I've got a good friend that's an orthopedic surgeon. He says all the time, he's like, I don't understand why somebody would come see me and not tell me exactly what's going on with them. I can't guess. So you've got to be specific with your doctors about what you have going on. Tell them, if your neck hurts, don't just say, oh, well, my neck hurts. Be specific. Tell them where your neck hurts. Tell them what you can do, what you can't do, and how that's affecting you. I can't turn my neck to the left, or I can't turn my head to the left. I can't get comfortable when I'm sitting down, or it hurts to sit down for long periods of time. It hurts to walk long distances. I can't get comfortable in bed. There's a lot of things that you can be specific about instead of just saying, well, I'm just a little bit sore. That doesn't do a lot of good, because then they have to guess, and they're not going to guess. And also, they're going to ask you what your pain is on a 1 out of 10 scale. Don't say your pain's a 1 out of 10 if your pain is actually a 4 out of 10. What I like to tell people is I can explain an 8 out of 10 6 months down the road after you receive treatment if it's still hurting that bad. What I can't do, or what's much harder to do, is explain that you're really experiencing an 8 out of 10 in pain when you said it was only a 2 out of 10 and your medical records say 2 out of 10. There's a record that's being created, and if it says 2 out of 10, they're going to hold you to it, regardless of how you're actually feeling. So don't try to be tough. Don't try to be brave. Just put it out there and how you're actually feeling, and then let us take that and advocate for you and push that 8 out of 10 a little bit further for you. And then lastly, I would say, kind of like I talked about a minute ago, just be specific with what's actually happening to you and what you can and can't do, and help us create that record. Then we can take that and we can paint that picture for you.
Yeah, no, great points. I think another place where it's important not to forget what everyone's watching is on social media.
Yeah.
Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter. One of the things we talk about with clients is to really be careful and cognizant of what you're putting on social media.
Sure.
Don't post about the accident, because that certainly can be used against you later. But, we all love to document our lives on social media. That's just the way of the modern world. But if you have a shoulder injury, probably not a good idea to post videos of you ziplining in Costa Rica through the jungles. One, you may not actually have a shoulder injury if you're doing that, but also that would be used against you, and it'll minimize your claim.
It certainly can, yeah.
Certainly could be very detrimental. And this doesn't mean, don't live your life to the best of your ability, but just be aware of what you're putting out there.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely right. If I had $1 for every time I had to explain a client's social media post to an opposing counsel, we probably wouldn't be sitting here doing this podcast. I mean, it happens all the time these days. And social media in and of itself can be awesome. I mean, certainly it's a great way to stay in touch with people you ordinarily wouldn't get to talk to. It's entertaining. You get to do things and see things that you wouldn't normally see. But in the personal injury world, more often than not, unfortunately, it can be harmful. And I think a normal reaction for just about anybody these days is to photograph and post about whatever it is you're doing, whether that's the meal that you're having or whether it's your kid's soccer game or whatever. And the same is true when it comes to an accident. Unfortunately, I think most people on social media only post positive things. So they want to paint their life in this rosy picture, and I get it. It's not fun to look at negative stuff, but when you're dealing with a car accident or any kind of injury event, that can be sort of harmful. I would say roughly 8 out of 10 people, that may be a little high, but 8 out of 10 people post about their car accident within 24 hours of having a car accident, and 90% of those posts follow the same kind of structure, if you will. So it'll be something like a photograph of the cars in the accident, and then there'll be a little post that's like, my family was involved in a car wreck last night. Thank God everyone's okay. We appreciate the thoughts and prayers, or something like that. That's typically the structure they fall in. And just, that's a fine post. I mean, there's nothing wrong with what you said, but the words, everything is okay, can really change things. I mean, certainly you can just about guarantee yourself that an insurance adjuster sees everyone's okay, and they're going to hold you to that. Well, you said everybody's okay. Why are you saying now that you've got all this pain, you needed all this treatment? Everybody was okay. So be careful, because everyone is okay doesn't necessarily mean that everybody is okay. Mm-hmm. Generally speaking, yeah, sure. Nobody died. Nobody lost an arm. Everybody is okay, but that doesn't mean that you're not experiencing some sort of pain. So I tell people the best practice, like you said just a second ago, is don't post about your accident if you can avoid it, and certainly you can. But if you feel like you just have to say something about the accident, try to stay away from any sort of generalities like everyone is okay, or any sort of admissions about what your current pain status may be. And the same goes for your family members. I mean, husbands, wives, moms, whatever, after your accident, they want to post so that their family and friends can pray for you or think about you or whatever. Try to encourage them not to do that as well, because, I mean, you're going to be tagged in it, and then it can be used against you. I can tell you that when a client hires us, one of the first things that we do is go and we look at their Facebook account or Instagram account or whatever, but we also go look at the at-fault party's Instagram account or Facebook account. What did they post about the accident? Not even just about the accident, but what did they post that day? What did they post that night? Whatever the case may be, were they at a bar drinking? Were they on the lake all day with friends? What were they doing that we might be able to get a little bit of evidence from and use against them? One of the stories that comes to mind on that one's a couple of years ago. I represented a young lady who had been rear-ended by this guy, and she said that he was just acting funny at the scene of the crash. She thought he was drunk. He was not cited or arrested for drinking and driving, but she just said something was off. He was just sort of a weird guy. So after she hired us, I immediately go on Facebook and I pull him up. And lo and behold, what do you see from that very day that we're talking about? He posted a video of himself driving down this back country dirt road, and he's got a Miller Lite in his hand while he's driving in this video, and he's singing some dopey song. And to make matters worse, he's got his kid riding in the front seat in this video without a seatbelt on. And it's like, what in the world are you thinking, putting this on Facebook? But he did. So immediately, boom, download that one. We're going to use it as Exhibit 1 in our deposition, and I think that's probably going to go well for us. And you just have to remember that everything that you put on social media becomes public, whether you intended for it to be or not. Once you put it out there, it's there for everybody. And along those lines, too, talking about our clients and things that you have to be cognizant of, I represented a couple of friends of mine several years back. They were rear-ended on 285. Pretty bad accident. She was very pregnant at the time. The accident kind of caused her to go into a premature labor or a false labor. Fortunately, they got her to the hospital. They were able to get that stopped, and the baby ended up being fine. But I want to say it happened on like a Monday. That following weekend, they went to the pumpkin patch to take fall photographs with the family, and like just about any wife or mother would do. Once the photographs came out, she posted them. And it's her and her family and her kids, and everybody's smiling and happy, and there's a picture of her holding a pumpkin. Nothing wrong with it, very innocent. It happens a million times a day across the world, but the insurance companies went and found those photographs, and they brought them into the deposition, and man, the insurance attorney, the defense attorney, just thought he had absolutely struck gold when he found these photographs, and he brought him out in the deposition, and I can remember it like it was yesterday. I mean, he literally was like, "Man, is your testimony that your neck and your back were hurting after the accident, right?" "Yes." And it's your testimony that your pain was like an 8 out of 10 or whatever it was at the time, isn't that right? And she said, "Yes." "And you're saying that this wreck caused you to have this pain, right? And this wreck happened on a Monday, right? Well, isn't it true that you went to the pumpkin patch with your family that weekend after the accident?" "Yes." "And you guys took photographs, right?" "Yep." And he pulls out a photograph. "Well, this is you in this photograph, right? And you would agree with me that you're smiling?" "Yeah." "You're happy?" "Yeah." "You're not in pain, are you?" And of course, I'm objecting. We get into it off the record about what's going on in the photographs, but I start thinking to myself, this is just the insurance or defense attorney having these photographs from Facebook, and we're just in a deposition, so nobody is making any determinations about the accident or about the injuries in this deposition. But what if this had come in front of a jury? What if all the jury's seeing is this photograph of this woman who was saying she's in pain, and she's at a pumpkin patch smiling, holding this big pumpkin? Well, they weren't there. They weren't at the pumpkin patch. They didn't see that she was sitting down the whole time until the photograph was necessary, and that she's in pain and she's struggling to walk over, and that her husband has to pick the pumpkin up and hand it to her to hold in the picture, and that he's standing right there to grab the pumpkin or grab her if he needs to, if everything goes south. The jury's not going to see that. All they're going to see is the bright smiling face. So you got to be careful. I mean, like you're talking about, if your shoulder's hurting, don't go ziplining for one, but if you do, don't post pictures about it. Because it is public, and certainly never, and I can't say this more strongly than never delete a post that you've already made. That can cause more issues than anything. If you made it, you made it. We'll deal with it. But it's not a bad idea to have your account set on private so that just your average person can walk in off the street, type your name in, and go download all your photographs that you posted over the past 6 months. So keep that in mind when you're making these social media posts.
Yeah, absolutely. Something else worth discussing is the use of the news media. Some accidents may result in some news coverage, given an interview on the night of news, and there's nothing wrong with that to an extent, telling your story. But it's also important, I think, that you discuss that with your counsel ahead of time. Make sure you understand what to talk about, what to stay away from.
Sure.
And just some guidelines if you're going to go that route and take an interview.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it happens, I don't want to say more often than not, but it happens a lot when there's an interesting accident or whatever may have happened. The news, especially if they don't have anything to talk about that day, then they want to grab onto something that throws out headlines, and they'll want to talk, videotape the people that are in it, ask them a bunch of questions and run a story on it. I've had it happen to several of my clients over the years. And my clients, to their credit, have always done a great job in the interviews. I mean, it's always been very nice, exactly what they needed to say. Nothing was spun in any sort of direction. But it is nice if you know the interview's coming, they contact you and say, "Hey, we want to talk to you about X." Give us a call. Give us a heads up that it's coming. Let us be there when they're doing the actual interview. If we can get a copy of the questions beforehand, just to make sure that they're all kind of on par with what we want them to be. Make sure they're not going to ask you anything that might trip you up or cause any issues in the future. Certainly, that's great. A lot of times, that's already happened before we get involved. If it does, it does. If you've already made the social media post or if they've already interviewed you for the news, then it's already happened. There's nothing we can do about it. But tell us about it so that we can go find the story, so we can go find the social media post, whatever it may be, and we can prepare for it, and then we can advocate on your behalf and sort of build that defense or the offense, whatever it is that we have to build to get around that issue. Yeah, I think more than anything, just remember that somebody is always watching. I mean, again, it's whether it's a camera, whether it's the news, whether it's people looking at you on social media, somebody's always watching. And if we're researching at-fault parties on social media, you can rest assured that the insurance companies are doing the same thing as soon as they get the claim. Yeah. They're going to scour every tool that they have to find anything they can against you. So just beware of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Big Brother's watching.
Big Brother and big insurance.
Yeah. But just to recap, one, be smart. Sure. Use common sense. Don't offer things that aren't needed at the time. That's going back to what you talked about, at the scene of the accident. Tell your lawyers, who's representing you, and your doctors what you're truly dealing with, and being honest and open with that. Take photos and make notes, specifically of cameras, body cam footage, or maybe a red light photo or a red light camera that might be helpful.
Yeah, and, on those lines, I didn't talk about it a minute ago when I was talking about cameras, but certainly our clients all have cameras in their pockets too, and there's nothing that says you can't pull your camera out and start recording as well. So don't be afraid to do that. You're perfectly entitled to it.
Yeah. And a lot of folks have dash cam photos or dash cam cameras nowadays.
I highly recommend them.
Yeah. So make sure, one, you notice if one of those is present or if you have one yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, record yourself to the extent that it's feasible to do. But don't share those.
Yeah.
Keep those for you and your attorney. But most importantly, like we said, last time and this time, just tell us everything that you can and tell us everything so we can, advocate.
Yeah. Tell us everything that happened or that you remember, and give us everything that you have. We're not going to know that a photograph exists if you took it and you don't tell us about it. So let us know about your social media post, and we'll do with it what we can. But I think it's a pretty good spot to close. As always, we hope that you guys took something from this, learned something from our tips and tricks here, the do's and don'ts that we just talked about. If you or anybody that you know or love has been hurt in any way, and Spencer and I can help you guys or help your family members out, certainly give us a call. Telephone number is 470-839-2769. You can find us online at bettismusgrove.com or on Facebook and Instagram at Bettis Musgrove. But until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. God bless.